welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to go over why I don't want to be a pharmacy technician anymore. So first, we'll start with a background of where I worked and how long I worked there and my title. So I was working at CVS Pharmacy as a lead pharmacy technician. I've been there for a little over 6 years now. For someone starting out in healthcare, I think it is a great job because it helps you develop multitasking skills, de-escalation techniques. It lets you become familiar with different medications, so that is really useful when you're pursuing something in the medical field. Also, it gets you familiar with how insurance claims works. So now I have a pretty good understanding of that and how to bill medications to deal with different insurance companies. I wouldn't say my experience was all bad because I did gain some insightful experience working as a pharmacy technician, and I do appreciate the skills I've learned working in the pharmacy. The main reason why I am leaving the pharmacy is because of financial reasons. A pharmacy technician just doesn't make enough to live comfortably in this economy, so I wanted to pursue something to where I could make a livable wage, and I knew working as a pharmacy technician I couldn't do that. And since I've been there for so long, I have worked up to $26.06 an hour, which is actually pretty good for being a pharmacy tech because you're mostly going to be looking at like $20 to maybe $23 an hour depending on where you're working. With that being said, I am pursuing my LPN license, which is a licensed practical nurse. I will actually be graduating in March of 2026, so I have a little under 5 months left. So once we hit November, I'll have 4 months left, so I'm excited about that. There was a time where I was working 60-hour shifts in the pharmacy and working as much as I could, and I was living in the hood and my mortgage was really low. My mortgage was only $1,000.47 a month, and I was still struggling. So if I'm working 60-hour shifts and my mortgage is only $1,000, like, it's just not a livable wage. So I felt like I was in a rut. I knew that I had to do something to better myself and my finances. So I sold my house. I bought my house, I think at the age of I think it was 25 or 26. I bought my first house completely on my own. I owned it. But I met my boyfriend. I decided to sell my house and to make a move. I moved to Pennsylvania from Maryland, and I decided to use that money to go back to school because I knew that I needed to do something with my life, and pharmacy technician just wasn't cutting it anymore. Not to mention, they love to cut hours, especially retail pharmacies, so that they can make more profit. They love running the pharmacies with the minimum amount of staff possible so that they can have a bigger profit for the company, which I get that business aspect. However, you are dealing with people's medications and, people's livelihood because people depend on medications to live. So it's just crazy how they run the pharmacy chaotic just to make more money. As someone who is single living on their own, I was paycheck to paycheck already. Even with me working 60 hours, I was still struggling. So when my hours are cut, I'm really that leaves me in a really bad financial hole. And the thing is they don't care. They don't care. It's a company. They don't care about you. You're just a number. They'll replace you tomorrow. They just don't care. And that's with any job, really. There would be times where in the week, I'd only be scheduled maybe 30 hours, 35 hours. I need my full 40 hours or else I'm not surviving. I'm barely surviving as it is with a full 40-hour week. So yeah, whenever they had overtime, I would pick it up because I wanted a plan for weeks where they'd cut hours. It just wasn't a sustainable job to have because of finances. The thing is, I could handle the stress of the job because it is a very high stress job, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. But the main reason was finances. So if I had a livable wage, I could deal with all the other crap going on in the pharmacy, but it didn't just stop at it not being enough money for me to live comfortably, but it was also really stressful, and it was starting to affect my mental health and physical health. Let's go over just how stressful it was working for CVS Pharmacy. So if you've ever picked up prescriptions from CVS Pharmacy, you probably already know. I'm probably not going to tell you anything new that you probably already don't know. They run the pharmacy ragged. I mean, you're running the pharmacy with a minimum amount of staff, not enough to do everything that you need to do. I will say that since I've been in Pennsylvania, the pharmacies that I have worked at, I've worked at 2 different pharmacies, they are better organized than Maryland pharmacies as far as how they manage everything and deal with issues. In Maryland, I had a really bad encounter with a really terrible situation that happened to me, which I'll talk about later. But the district leader did not handle the situation appropriately by any means, and I was basically screwed over. I worked at a pharmacy for 5 years and I was treated like I was nothing. So we'll go over that later. For the stress of working in the pharmacy, it was a lot. I like to complete everything that I need to get done. I am a control freak. I like to have order and organization in my workplace. So I would feel the pressure to the point where I would feel anxiety and almost like pressure on my chest because I would get so anxious of trying to manage everything all at once, where it started to affect my mental and physical health at that point. Luckily, it didn't affect my blood pressure, heart rate, anything like that, but I could see it affecting my physical health really bad if I stayed there. If I stayed there any longer and kept dealing with that work environment, I could see it affecting my physical health later down the road, just because dealing with high stress like that just is not good for your heart. There's no time for you to even use the restroom. So what would end up happening is I would have to go to the bathroom and I literally have to hold it because I knew that if I left for a minute or two, like I didn't even have a minute or two to begin with. So I would hold going to the bathroom because there would be no time to go to the bathroom. And the pharmacists, I'll talk about that in a moment, but the pharmacists were ran ragged. Like, since they run everything in the pharmacy and oversee everything, and we need them for so many different tasks in the pharmacy, they were, it was just a lot of pressure put on them, and it shouldn't be so much pressure put on one person like that. So I don't know, I would never want to be a pharmacist after seeing how they treat their pharmacists and what working environment they have to deal with every single day. I literally worked with a pharmacist who would have baby aspirin underneath her counter because she would get chest pains really bad because of all the pressure and stress the job was causing her. That's not normal, and that is not a healthy work environment at all. So working retail pharmacy, you have people picking up prescriptions, you have people dropping off prescriptions and going over to the drop-off counter to deal with insurance issues, medication refills, data entry. You also have drive-through where people are picking up prescriptions. They can also come in with insurance problems or dropping off prescriptions there, picking up prescriptions. You also have the phones, but now they've switched over to patients leaving voicemails. So you have no idea how many voicemails come in within 1 hour. So you have to call them back and you have to address whatever they need taken care of. You also have vaccines. Since it is flu season right now, there has been probably at least 10 vaccines scheduled in an hour. It's crazy. Aside from dealing with physical people and people needing help, you also have inventory tasks to do every single day, where you have to count medications in the pharmacy, certain ones, to update the cycle counts. You also have to check in orders that come in. So we order medications that we didn't have in stock for patients to get the next day, the next business day. So you have to check in a cardinal order and you have to process them through and fill those medications. You also have prescriptions being delivered out by USPS, so you have to package those prescriptions to go out for delivery. Once a week, we also get in truck where we have probably like 30 totes filled with medications that we have to put on the shelves. And those are just our inventory tasks. So you have to do daily tasks on top of everything else. After 14 days, we do put it back on the shelf, and that's called RTS. So basically you have to return them to stock. You have to go get all of the bags. There could be 130 slots of different prescriptions, like 1 through 130, and you have to find that patient's prescriptions, pull that medication out, and then you have to scan it, slap a new label on it, and put it back on the shelf. So that takes time. That's done every single day. So just think about it. If you have only one pharmacist and 2 technicians working in a pharmacy and they have to deal with a huge line of pickup, there's a line at drop off, there's cars in the drive-through, there's vaccines, it's madness and chaotic. So yeah, it can be really stressful trying to manage everything. Since I was a lead pharmacy technician, I would be the one that would solve a lot of problems. So for technicians, they don't always get the best training when they are hired, especially for insurance issues. It takes time to learn how to process insurance rejections. So whenever there would be an issue with insurance or a prescription not going through for whatever reason, I would have to usually take over and solve the issue. Also, being a leader, I would take on any difficult customers because I didn't like my team being harassed. I'd rather deal with it myself so that I don't lose a pharmacy technician, because the retention of people staying is really low. People usually quit really fast because they don't understand how stressful the job is going to be until they start working it. And then they learn that it's not for them and it's too stressful, so they quit. So I would like to create an environment where my coworkers wouldn't have to deal with difficult, customers or patients. I would go over and then let them step away so that I would deal with it, because I don't know, I don't care if someone screams at me. I'll just stand there like this. Like, are you done? Or, I'll be like, you're not going to yell at me. You're going to talk to me like a person. I'm trying to help you. And if you continue to yell at me, I'm not going to help you. Okay? So I need you to speak to me like a person and I will help you. So I'd have that conversation a lot with people because, they would try to go off on you, yell at you, I don't know, spit in your face, like throw a prescription at you. Like, you'd be surprised what people do. I've had to call the cops on people because they refuse to leave the drive-through lane. Like say if someone says, my doctor sent over a prescription and I'm not leaving until I get it. Well, if I don't have an active prescription on file, if I don't have a prescription that came over, I can't help you. So if you sit here, you're holding up the line, that's not happening. So yeah, I'd call the cops on people because I'm not dealing with that. So I'd say, I understand your frustration. I understand you're trying to get your prescription and I want to help you. I can send out a request to your doctor. But unfortunately right now I do not have an active prescription for that medication on file. You're more than welcome to follow up with your doctor, but I cannot have you sit in this line holding up the line. And if you do so, if you refuse to leave, I'm gonna have to call the cops, okay? And then I would close the window and I'd call the cops. And then by the time the cops usually come or they see the cops, they usually drive off. It's a lot of de-escalation that you have to deal with working in the pharmacy. I don't know. I didn't mind that aspect because I can handle stress pretty well because I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. So I'm really good at just dealing with people screaming in my face. I can put up with it. It's nothing new to me. So yeah, I have thick skin, I guess. What really made me want to leave, aside from the financial aspect, is that I was working hard, okay? Like, I am a hard worker. I'm really good at, organizing things and having things in order. But what made me leave is the amount of disrespect that I got from the company. There were so many issues that happened at my job to where I did the appropriate thing where I'd reach out to colleague relations, which is basically HR, trying to address a problem to have it handled appropriately, and that company, CVS, failed me so many times. So many times. I got so screwed over, it's not even funny. Now we'll go on to story time. Go over exactly why I felt that way. My first 2 years working at CVS, it was okay. It was before COVID. However, I felt like since I was younger, I kind of got pushed to the side a lot because, I don't know, people say like pretty girl privilege or whatever, but also at the same time, whenever you work with someone that's older, I don't know, sometimes they can kind of not want the best for you, if you know what I mean. I don't know, it's like weird. But basically, I was never shown how to do anything else besides pickup and drive-through. And I noticed that there were some people that started after me that were shown more things than I was. And I did express, interest in learning more. And, I did my job, I worked really hard doing what I was doing, what I was taught, the little that I was. And it wasn't until we got a new pharmacy manager where she finally stood up for me. And basically, I had we had a lead pharmacy technician, first before me. And I don't know what it was, but sometimes I felt like she didn't want me to learn much. I felt like she kind of tried to keep me just doing pickup and drive through, and then whoever she liked, she would have do cycle counts, learn inventory stuff, or do production. And I basically was just dealing with people all the time, which I didn't mind. It was part of my job, but I definitely did notice that. I didn't say anything, I just kind of was trying to be mutual because I knew I wanted to go to nursing school, so I didn't really take it to heart and care that much. But anyway, we ended up getting a new pharmacy manager, and she started teaching me more things, and she was like, wow, you are great. You count fast, you handle things really well. And she started showing me more and more things and giving me more responsibility in the pharmacy. And then eventually I did work up to becoming a lead pharmacy technician after about 2.5 to 3 years after working in the pharmacy. So I definitely worked up to the position that I was in. I worked hard for it. I did my time doing pickup and drive through all the time, and that was just that. A couple years after I did become a lead pharmacy technician there, I made the mistake, and please take my advice, okay? Never, ever, ever mix family and business together, ever. It doesn't matter how tight you two are, don't do it. Please, after hearing my story, please learn from this, okay? Because a lot of people told me not to do what I did, and I did it anyway, and then it did bite me in the butt in the end. So I made the mistake of getting my cousin hired, and I knew I was moving to Pennsylvania at that time. I wanted to train her because I cared about her, I was older than her, and I don't know, I always looked after her like a little sister kind of thing, and I wanted to see the best for her. I wanted the best for her. And I knew I was going to get her hired, and I wanted to train her to be a lead pharmacy technician. And she never had any medical experience prior. She worked at Burger King, okay? And, nothing wrong with that, but she worked at Burger King and she had no experience. She didn't even have to have an interview because I was so close with my pharmacy manager, and I vouched so much for her. I put in so many good words for her. We were really close at the time. When I was struggling in my early 20s, I would always take her with me wherever I went. I would do her makeup, I don't know. And then I told her about how to enroll in college, because I wanted I wanted the best for her. So I was always trying to be a good influence. So my pharmacy manager ended up leaving that I worked with for a while, and I had a good relationship with, and we got someone new in. And at this point, I was training my cousin to take over for when I left. And I will say this, I was wrong, and I can say that now. Because at the time, there was a girl that I worked with that wanted to learn how to do inventory management and grow, and I didn't train her because I wanted my cousin to, do well and be a leader there. So I continued to train my cousin, and everything was going great. But little by little, I noticed that she started to kind of disrespect me and overstep her boundaries. And I some things did make me feel a little uncomfortable, but I kind of just brushed it off, maybe I'm tired, I'm overreacting, I don't know. I didn't really think much of it until it started happening more and more, to where it was starting to affect my livelihood outside of work. What ended up happening was she started painting me out to be this horrible loose cannon at work. So yes, I was a control freak. However, I did work with some people that didn't want to do their job. Like I said previous, I did pick up and drive through without any complaints for 2 years of working at CVS. Well, I would have people, and I would organize it to where everyone had equal time doing pickup and drive through, because when I first started, I knew how it felt to be just thrown a pickup and drive through and never taught anything else. So as a leader, I wanted everyone to have equal time doing each station. Except for when we were behind, then, you know, that was more of a business decision that, you know, whatever we need to do to get out people's prescriptions on time is what we need to do. So during that time, I would have whoever was fastest at counting. But if I knew someone was fast, I'd put them on production, no problem. But if we're behind, yeah, we should have the strongest person on production, you know? So I'd have to have conversations with people. Me being short, you know, and tiny with like a, you know, high-pitched voice, some people just didn't take me seriously. And, you know, it just kind of was uncomfortable trying to have people do what they're supposed to be doing, because I'd have to tell them to do their job basically. And that's not always easy to do because people don't really listen sometimes. So I was dealing with that. She would talk about certain people behind their back, and then we would sit in the car and have lunch together. And, you know, I'd be like, you know, this person's not working, and she'd agree, blah, 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 blah. This person, like, we had one guy that smelled really, really bad that we worked with. And we both said that he smelled horrible, and, you know, we both talked about him. You know, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like working with him. And there was conversations for him to better his hygiene when he comes to work, but that never happened. But anyway, she started becoming buddy-buddy with the person that she was talking about. And I noticed that she would make comments like, oh, you know, April's such a control freak, or, you know, we don't have to do that. Like, she would start overstepping to try to, like, overstep what I would say. And she started being buddy-buddy with people that she talked about. And then she'd paint me out to be like I was the only one that didn't, you know, like that person, or, you know, she's being horrible to you. But little did they know that she was talking about them as well. It just became so toxic working there. I started to have really bad anxiety every single time I'd have to work. Unfortunately, the pharmacy manager that we did get in, he loved drama. Like, he loved it. It's like he, like, I don't know, was hoping for it. Like, he'd come into work, and instead of trying to de-escalate tension, he would talk about her, then talk about me, and then, like, I don't know, it was just really weird. And then it got to the point where and they started talking about smoking together, and I don't smoke at all. So, you know, of course I'm an outcast because I'm not gonna smoke with you. And anyway, I have a boyfriend and you're my boss. That's inappropriate. So she started sucking up to him, and, you know, she kind of had more of a leverage than I did to be closer to him. So he started taking her side. And then she also kind of started being the one guy that, you know, smelled bad, you know, and didn't want to work on her side. So she got that guy on her side. There was another guy that worked in the front, and he'd come back and he would flirt and try to flirt. Well, I'm not going to entertain that. I'm not going to make you feel good about your ego. You know, I'm going to be professional. If we need you, we'll call you, but I'm not going to, ha ha ha, you know, like, flirt with you. But then she loved it. Like, she would be, like, laughing with him, like, you know, like, being all close with him and stuff. And I was doing my job, you know, I'd stand away. And she started talking about me to him, to the other guy. And then she kind of formed almost like it was weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like she started slowly getting into other people's heads and then painting me out to be like I was a loose cannon. But then she started going off on me at work. I would simply say, I need you to do this, or, you know, whatever. And then she would yell at me, you know, and be like this, you know. And that, that alone, your body language is inappropriate and coming off hostile. That's how she would react. And I would just talk like this, but I would say what I needed to say. Aside from her being a loose cannon, she also started to steal my hours. The district leader, she came to our region as a new district leader. We had another district leader before her, and there was a time where I was working 60-hour shifts, helping out different pharmacies in the region. You know, I'd go and help out because I wanted as many hours as I could to survive. I started to redo my house. I started to remodel it so that I could sell it and make a profit from selling my townhouse. So instead of me working 60 hours, I just needed my 40 hours. And during the weekend, I would work on my house with my boyfriend because, you know, he was stronger and could do a lot of the manual things while, you know, and we could, like, work together to get my house done. So I started wanting off the weekend so I could work on my house because, you know, I had to sell my house. And The district leader basically didn't like that I wasn't picking up hours, and then my cousin started picking up hours at other stores. So she maybe picked out like 3 shifts, you know, and then we had this call, you know, and at this point they knew that I was moving to Pennsylvania eventually, but I expressed how I wanted to start making the schedule because I wanted to learn how to do it since I was never taught how to do the schedule. The district leader, she favored my cousin. Since she picked up shifts, you know, since she was a district leader, she stood out more to her, you know, so she chose her to do the schedule, which it wasn't her fault, and I never blamed her for doing the schedule. I understand why it happened. I understand that, you know, from an outside perspective, I was moving, so as a business standpoint, I know that it makes sense. Why are we going to train her to do the schedule if she's moving? We want this store to succeed. We don't care about her career development, so they weren't going to teach me, you know, because I was moving. So they were teaching her how to do the schedule, and she took over doing the schedule. My issue with her, with that, is that she knew, right, that I was living on my own. She knew I was struggling. My cousin was living with her mom, and at the time she wasn't even paying her mom anything towards the rent. Both her and her boyfriend lived with her mom, okay? Both worked, and all they had was her car payment because her boyfriend didn't drive and took her car all the time. You don't have as many bills as I do, and you've never been quite on your own. Your parents have always been there for you. They know that my mom threw me out at 19. They know that I've always had it rough. I've always been in survivor mode since I graduated high school and I was kicked out. She knew that I needed my hours. She started giving herself more hours, and then they knew, her and the pharmacy manager, the one that loved the drama, they both knew I was starting to redo my house and I wanted to move so I can go to nursing school after selling my house. They knew that my only time to work on my house was on the weekend with my boyfriend. And she started scheduling me on the weekends. She started taking my hours, and she didn't care at all about it. She was cold about it because I confronted her and I said, look, like, you live with your mom. And then I did say this in front of the district leader. We had an altercation, her and I, at work, and I was talking in a normal tone like I am now, and she started yelling and she started cursing, which is so inappropriate at work. Started cursing, and then she, like, you know, I was like, you need to calm down. You're not going to talk to me like that. And my family all have said how she's two-faced and, you know, she does people dirty, and I would always stick up for her. I always stuck up for her whenever my family would talk bad about her. Like, the whole family would talk about her and said that she was a snake and that, you know, she's this terrible person, and I never saw it. I never saw it because I never saw that side from her until I got her to work at my job. And I did something good for her. I got her in there and trained her to be a lead tech. I didn't have to do that. I had to work there for 2.5 years to build up to be a lead technician. I got her in. She didn't need no interview. I trained her right away to be a lead technician. And that was the things that I got. That was the treatment that I got. She started lashing out at work on me, and I would go to, you know, colleague relations about the situation. They never did anything. And the district leader always took her side. Always. Always. It didn't matter what she would do. She always would take her side. This one time, you know, it was a whole altercation, and the district leader was there, and I said, you know, and I said in front of Leah and the district leader, I said, you live with your mom. I live out on my own. I was like, I need my 40 hours. And you know what the district leader said to me? She was like, so? I was like, wow. And then Leah was like, yeah, so? Well, my cousin was like, yeah, so? And I was like, okay. All right, you're gonna talk to me like that? Okay, and I said, and another thing, I said, you know what's crazy? You always come to work high, because she'd always, and her car smelled like marijuana so bad. Her eyes would be so red, bloodshot. She'd be high. She'd talk like this sometimes. You know, if she wasn't screaming at my face, she'd be like talking like this. You know, like super high. Her eyes would be like this. Dealing with people's medications and you're coming to work high under the influence, that's inappropriate. And I said that in front of the district leader. And then she was like, wow. My cousin was like, wow, you would say that this is my job. And I said, yeah, and this is my job. I said, this was my job first. I got you in here. This is my job. And you've been stealing hours from me. You've been treating me like crap. This is my job. And this is my livelihood. You live with your mom. Like, you know, like I live it on my own. I didn't have to get you a job. I got her a job in there and she backstabbed me and did me so dirty. It's, I don't know. I don't talk to more than half of my mom's side because of so many, it's just so much dysfunctional family stuff that has happened over the years to me. So that's why to protect my peace, I'm done talking to anyone who has hurt me and hasn't apologized, who's done me wrong, who's caused me pain. I'm done. Like, you know, blood doesn't make family. It doesn't. And I will never forget how hard my 20s were because of how horrible my family was to me. I will never forget it. But you know what? And I know that they're gonna watch this video. Enjoy the show. I'm gonna flourish. And you know what? And when I do, it'll be all from me, okay? I never had any support. I've never had any help. But you know what? Watch me succeed and watch me be successful because I'm about to be a nurse in 5 more months. So, you know, anyway, to stay on the topic of this video, it's just really painful how she did me so dirty at my job when I got her in there and was looking out for her. It hurts, I'm not gonna lie. You know what, I'm not one to get even, but I do believe in karma. So I'm gonna let, you know, karma do its job. It's not my job to, you know, get even with someone. I'm gonna protect my peace and I'm gonna, you know, work on myself. And that's all I can do. My advice, I don't know, this is, you know, not related to this video, but I always think like this. I don't like to give my energy towards something I cannot change. You know, you can cry, you can let it out, you know, but I'm not gonna hold that pain inside of me because it's not worth it. If it's something that's out of my control, it's out of my control, and there's no point in wasting energy on something that I can't control. So with that being said, you know, I can control my future. I can control who has access to me. And for that, you know, I'm going to live a more peaceful, happy life. But back to that story, I ended up having to transfer to a totally different pharmacy. It actually worked out for the best because when I did transfer over, I loved my pharmacy team. Everyone worked so efficiently together. There was no drama. Everything just flowed. I'm thankful for what happened because I feel like it worked out for the best for me, actually. And that's the thing, like, you know, when things happen, it may be upsetting and you may not understand why, but I do feel like God has a plan for us, and my plan was not to stay there. I found another pharmacy where the team just worked together better and it wasn't toxic anymore. So I'm thankful for that. But what really upsets me, I tried to do the right thing. I tried to reach out to colleague relations to settle everything that happened before it happened because I could feel the tension building up. I was reaching out for a solution. Nothing was handled properly until she started lashing out at me. And yeah, but you know, it is what it is. Also, another thing that really upset me is how every single time I did go to school, when I was doing my prerequisites for my nursing program, my BSN program, CVS denied me any help because they said I was getting Pell Grants, so they wouldn't give me any tuition reimbursement because I got a Pell Grant. And now that I am in another nursing program, now they're saying, oh, that program doesn't count. It's not a school that they're partnered with to, you know, reimburse my tuition. So they never really supported me furthering my education. So I didn't like that. Fortunately, whenever you are in a toxic working environment, working with CVS, don't rely on colleague relations or your district leader to solve issues. You can try, but my best advice is just to transfer to a different location because you're not going to get anywhere. And sometimes some battles just aren't worth fighting. It's not worth your energy. It's better just to transfer, get away from the toxic environment. And sometimes, you know, fresh starts are better. So yeah, that's my advice, just to transfer out if you are experiencing any issues at your job. Finances, the stress, the company not handling situations well. With all that, I want to get out and, you know, I want to make more money. I want to have a career. I felt like working as a pharmacy technician wasn't a career for me personally. I just need to make more to be able to live more comfortably. I did end up getting a remote pharmacy technician position with Cigna, which I really did enjoy. However, I had to stop working there because they wouldn't work with my school schedule, unfortunately. So I did have to go back to CVS. If you are a pharmacy tech and you're tired of working in retail pharmacy, transfer over to hospital. Hospital pharmacy is so much better, or work as a remote pharmacy technician like I did. Starting pay was $22 an hour. So yeah, that's higher than what CVS starts you out. So, you know, it's good information to have. But yeah, those are all my reasons why I don't want to be a pharmacy technician anymore. And that was my experience working as a pharmacy technician with CVS. If you guys have any questions, comment down below. I want my channel to, I want to help motivate people to pursue their careers in healthcare. So if I can help in any way, please let me know. I'm going to continue to post content while I'm in nursing school. And I'm also going to post content with my life after nursing school, so I'm really excited for that. I have a lot of plans in the future for me, so I'm excited to show you guys that and have you guys watch me grow as I grow in my healthcare career. So yeah, anyway, bye guys. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.